Welcome to the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, hosted by me, yours truly, Jeffrey Belomo, where we discuss all things estate planning and elder law, and, well, hey, anything else we want to talk about. On today's episode, it's going to be me solo today, and we are going to be talking purely about estate planning and elder law. The topic today is going to be, if I could go back and counsel my younger self, what would I tell myself? You know, I'm really looking forward to this show. This is going to be a lot of fun for me. I often think about what would I have done differently or what would I say differently. So this is going to be fun for me. Just as a reminder, at Belomo & Associates, we do everything through education. We want to educate you and your family so that what happened to my family doesn't happen to yours, and that when it happens, you know the options and you know different things that you can possibly do. So that is what we strive at Belomo & Associates. We offer pre-planning workshops, crisis Medicaid planning workshops, as well as special needs workshops. And for those of you who lose a loved one, we offer probate and trust administration workshops as well. In all of those areas, hoping to take away some of the mystery and some of the misunderstanding to make the process as easy as it possibly can, even though it is a difficult process and it is very important for you and your family. Just as a reminder, please don't take information that you receive from this show or any other radio show for that matter to constitute legal advice. If you're looking for legal advice, please call an attorney licensed in your state that specializes in the area that you are looking for to get advice. This show and any other radio show is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Thank you very much. So, what would I say to my younger self? You know, the first thing that I do is I go back to when I first went out on my own. I loved the firms that I was able to get experience from and work with, but I knew at that point in my life that I needed a greater mission. I needed a greater purpose. And I wanted to make sure that what happened to my family didn't happen to others. And I kind of realized at the end of '08, beginning of '09, that I had become, you know, what I would say is one of them, one of those attorneys, meaning billed for my time, and then at the end of the hour said, well, if you hire me today, I'll roll it over into the planning fee, and here's the cost of the entire plan that you'll need, without really describing what the plan was, the pros and cons, what to expect, you know, all up front kind of understanding and agreement. And it hit me that I became one of them, and I went on this mission to provide education, and that is a noble, meaningful cause, and I don't regret that one bit. What I'd probably tell myself now, though, in hindsight, is not to have preconceived ideas of what education means. I believe that education meant the free consultation and allowing people to kind of ask specific questions about their individual case. But what I've learned over 20 years now is that the truth is education is the same for everybody. And having done this now for over 20 years and hearing, you know, thousands of situations and cases, they're all, you know, fall into pretty similar categories and circumstances. And allowing individuals one-on-one consultations is extremely overwhelming for the client, especially when at the end I would ask for an answer. I would ask for them to move forward. And in my head, I was providing all this education. And then the least that, you know, the client could do in return was to let me know if they were thinking of moving forward, not in a way to pressure them, not in a way to kind of force them to make a decision, but, you know, as okay, I gave you 2 hours of education in a workshop. I then educated you for free. And then I couldn't say no to a second free consult. I couldn't say no to a third free consult. And my younger self believed that that was the best thing for the client. My younger self believed that I was doing them a favor. And the truth is, I really wasn't. It is very overwhelming to be one-on-one with an attorney and to have the attorney educating the same thing over and over, you're not specifically educating on a specific situation. You are truly educating on the same things about what are wills, what are trusts, how do the trust works. Why is an asset protection trust different than a tax trust? Why can the trustee be in control of some trust but not other trusts? It is literally the same education. And for those of you who have heard, any of our workshops, whether it be the 3 lands, the 3 secrets, estate planning essentials, 7 threats to protect you and your family, 3 easy steps to protect your family, these are all workshops that we have given over the years. Essentially, the education is the exact same in every workshop. We're packaging it differently. We're spreading the message differently. Maybe the call to action is different, but the education piece is exactly the same. It hit me a few years ago when a lady said to me, "Jeff, how you taught trust tonight is how you should teach it every night." And I laughed and I said, "Ma'am, I literally teach it the same way every night. It's a script, and I tell the same stories. I tell the same jokes. I take breaks in the same spot. I smile in the same spot. I laugh in the same spot, because it's the only way then that I know that I'm teaching it the same way as the other attorneys in the office, but also that you're hearing the same message." And you heard it differently tonight because now you've heard it several times, and it lands differently when you've heard it over and over again. And the look on her face was just priceless. I mean, she was dumbfounded and was like, "Holy cow, I really thought it was different." So it took a very drastic case, which, I have shared on this podcast. And of course, we've changed the name to protect the innocent. But, I'm calling the client Chip, simply to just make up a fake name for an individual. But that situation of him being extremely overwhelmed within the process and choosing essentially to do virtually nothing, a base plan, but not truly protecting his family, not truly protecting his spouse, not truly doing the things that he needed to do. And all he heard was the costs. It took me a lot of years to figure out a way to bring down the price point, over 50%. And as much as there is no doubt in my mind that the value is there, and there are still clients who do want the old model. There are people who still want the one-on-one. There are people who are willing to pay for that service. But the majority of people are really looking for a way to get the asset protection, but at a price point that they don't hear just the cost. They hear the value. They hear what it is that the trust does and how it can protect their family. And they listen to the stories rather than shutting down and only hearing the cost, right? And that's what happened in that situation. Was he came in, he got overwhelmed. At the end of the workshop, I offered 3 options, gave him the 3 prices, and then asked what he'd like to do. And he still, in his mind, had questions in regards to how the trust worked and how the trust were different than other trusts and what it meant. And he couched it in terms of, I have specific questions about my case. But the truth is, like most clients, when they come back, they're just asking, okay, tell me again, what is a trust? Okay, tell me again, why can't I be the trustee when I was told I couldn't be? Okay, tell me again why it isn't my social security number when I was told it couldn't be. Okay, tell me again why this is different than everything that I've ever been taught or told or read or, and so, but all he could hear was the cost, and he could not get beyond that. He could not get over that. And hey, you know what? We provided a heck of a service for 20 some years, and we still do. And there are other people who see the value in that. But if I would say to my younger self, don't impose what you believe is occurring on people, and don't make a system or refuse to modify the system because you think you know best. It isn't natural to me to want to educate in a group. It isn't natural to me to ask for a commitment before people get, a ton of free meetings and education. as far as education regarding a specific situation. But what I learned was a lot of people needed second and third consultations. And when I really started tracking the numbers, I learned they're not more likely to move forward. They're not more likely to protect their family. They're overwhelmed, and they're likely not to become less overwhelmed. The sales technique, or the things that you read in books all the time, is that a confused mind says no. And that is exactly what happened, is when you're giving a price point that is a substantial number, people are confused, and then they end up not doing anything simply because they're confused. And what I have learned now that I've been doing this for as long as I have is that I have never met a family or a person that didn't want to protect their family. I've never met someone who didn't want to pass on some sort of legacy to their spouse, to their children. But what I've learned is there are a lot of people who don't want to pay to get a service that they know is worth it if it seems, a little higher than what they were expecting. And that is something too that I've learned, is that it's okay to have people say no. That is one thing that I think my younger self struggled with, and I absolutely would be devastated, because I felt like I was failing the client. I felt like I was failing the family. And, I get that. That's certainly a good feeling, and you want what's best for clients. But as I've gotten older, I've learned that, all I can do is educate and tell my story and let people know the pros, the cons, the goods, the bads, the uglies. And I can't be attached to the decision that is made by the client, and that maybe they won't make what I believe is the right decision for their family. But that doesn't mean that they're not making the right decision, what they believe for their family. Recently, I was having a rough day, and one of my team members kind of knew it, and she heard me on the phone call, and she said, "Jeff, I need to share with you something. 10 years ago, you did a couple workshops, and we recently got hired by 3 different families. And all 3 families heard you speak over 10 years ago, and none of them hired you. None of them ended up working with the firm. None of them ended up moving forward. But all 3 of them called you when it happened. All 3 of them called you when loved ones entered the nursing home. All 3 of them said to me, I remember what you said. I remember what Jeff, said, that there were options. I couldn't remember what they were, but I remember him saying that it's not too late. That you can always do something as long as there is something there to protect." And they all came back, Jeff. They all listened. They all knew where to go, even though they didn't hire you back then. And of course, my brain went to, well, I failed them, because here they are 10 years later. They had to pay a lot more money. They had to go through a lot more stress. They had a lot more unknowns, and they didn't have to have that. And, had I done my job right, they wouldn't have had to gone through that experience. But the truth is, I can't blame myself for that. And I definitely know that they heard me. They did, because they wouldn't have come back had they not. And so what I would tell my younger self is, it's okay not to get hired. It's okay for someone to make a decision that it's not right for them now, because the education and the message that you're spreading and sharing is a good one, and that they will remember it when it happens. And all of those community presentations and all of those events that you're driving around to is worth it. If you touch one life, if you change one person's outcome because of the education that they received, it's all for a good reason, and it was worth it. And traveling and being away from your family a few nights a week, if you can impact one family and it will change their trajectory, it was worth it. So I would tell my younger self, keep fighting the good fight, keep believing in what you're doing, keep providing education for free. But maybe think twice about what that education means and in what context it is. I'm loving the new model that we've been using since January of this year, where we're educating more in groups, and that is allowing us to, manage our time a little better, but also not have clients be overwhelmed and not have clients feel like they're one-on-one and they have to make a decision immediately. There's a lot of value in that, a lot of value in, bringing them back in a group setting so that they can get the education that they need and then get to decide. Know the cost up front, know what the process looks like, know what it looks like on the back end. And the other thing I would tell my younger self is the clients love the Red Wagon Club. Clients love the maintenance. They love being a part of a club and seeing the firm and listening to events on a regular basis, updating documents, bringing them in. The truth is, I had learned about that model several years before we actually instituted the program. And, people who are close to me and who were, with me at the time will tell you the reason that I hesitated is because I only heard when it was taught to me as a way to make more money for the firm. And frankly, that isn't what motivates me. That isn't what drives me. And now, in hindsight, what I realize is we lose our shirt on the Red Wagon Club and the maintenance program. With the amount of value that we provide, speaking events every month, we have annual picnic, we have the annual maintenance meetings, and then clients can come in anytime and make changes, whether it be changes because they want their documents updated or a change to their document because of a situation, a change in health, a change in finance, maybe a change in the law, maybe just because they've changed their mind. When you're able to be proactive and be able to have clients come in and not in a crisis situation, and when the laws change, contacting the clients and tell them about the change and how it impacts their plan, and stay on top of changes in the industry with banking regulations and other things going on, and always giving updates, always providing that information and giving fee guarantees on the back end for estate administration, discounts on Medicaid planning, and just being there and being part of a family. That is worth it. It's okay to lose money in the short term. It's okay to really over deliver on a value. The one thing that I never anticipated was the unintended consequence or benefit of doing it, which is you become really close with the families in the program. They really do become family. And it is tough to lose someone in the family, whether it be to a death or an incapacitation and they're not able to be a part of the program anymore. It's like losing a loved one. But knowing that they're taken care of while they're in it, and yes, the amount of hours that they're going to spend with us, the amount of hours that they're going to use, the ability to get their changes all the time, we don't make money on that part, but as an unintended consequence and benefit is the maintenance families are way more likely to refer business. In fact, we get 3 times more referrals from our maintenance families than we do from other clients and any other sources. And that's because they really do become part of it. So I would tell my younger self, don't underestimate the value. And it isn't about the firm and it isn't about you. It's about the clients and the peace of mind that they receive and knowing that when they need those documents, they're going to work exactly as they were intended to. I was very fortunate in 2019 to buy 2 practices. 2 estate planning practices from attorneys that I consider to be 2 of the kindest, most wonderful human beings, but also just incredible attorneys. And what I learned was the typical old model of an attorney is to create a form and then to use the form for most of your career, if not all of your career, and rarely, if ever, updating it. And, pretty much from the time that I went out on my own, I engaged and purchased an expensive software program and paid to have it updated every month. And the peace of mind that provides me cannot be understated. In looking at documents from 1982, 1983, and seeing that they were essentially the exact same documents that were used in 2019. And this is by no means a knock on the attorneys. I mean, that is what attorneys did. That is what most still do, to be completely honest. That just isn't what we do. And updating documents based upon changes in Social Security palms, Medicaid case law, Medicaid regulations, tax laws, the Secure Act 2.0, etc., etc. There is no possible way that I would be able to stay on top of that. There are not enough hours in a day. There's not enough access to research. There's not enough ability to do that as an individual, which is why most attorneys use the same form their entire career. Knowing that I have that ability to update and to get access to a national software platform that gets updates constantly and stays ahead of the curve allows me to go to sleep at night knowing that my clients are taken care of. And I probably would tell my younger self to do it sooner, to do it quicker. It was a very large investment, and so I hesitated. I would definitely tell myself to not hesitate and to invest in what it is that I'm doing for my firm, but most importantly for my clients, to make sure that they and their families are taken care of in that time of need when it happens. And, as I always say, there's no crystal ball. So we don't know when that's going to happen. We don't know what our outcome is going to be in the end. And are we going to suffer? Are we going to live a long time? Are we going to need long-term care? We don't know. And so let's plan for today and plan that if it happened tomorrow, you and your family would be taken care of. And then do it in a way that we're going to keep it updated so that it works today and tomorrow. And then we can go to bed, rest assured that they're going to work the way that they intended to work, but also the way that they need to work at the time of death. And that is something that I'm really glad I did. And I would tell myself not to wait much longer or not too long. Just go ahead and pull the trigger on that, and that it's worth it. Well, this has been a wonderful podcast for me. It's kind of going down memory lane and, talking to my younger self. And it's definitely been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience. The last thing that I would probably tell myself is remember to tell the people in your life that you love them every day. I was very fortunate, and then I got to speak to my mom, the day that she passed. And I was on a balcony of a cruise ship getting ready to take off. And during the sail away party, I decided to go and call my mom and dad and just say hello and tell them I love them. And I had no idea that would be the last time I would ever speak to my mom. But what's really cool is I got to tell her I loved her that day. And she did go to bed that night and never woke up. But I know that she knows how I felt. And every day I know that my dad knows how I feel because I tell him. That would probably be something I would tell my younger self, is not to wait. I guess as a young man, it's tough to tell your dad and your family that you love them, but it really isn't. And it's the best thing, it's the best gift that you can give to a family member and to yourself. So that's probably the last thing I would say to myself, and definitely glad that I did, glad that I do, and would encourage you to do so as well. So I hope you enjoyed this version or this episode of the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, hosted by me, yours truly, Jeffrey Belomo. And on this episode, we talked a lot about what I would tell my younger self if I could go back in time. I really enjoyed the podcast today. It was certainly a trip down memory lane. And just a reminder, if you're ever looking for education in the estate planning and elder law context, please give us a call at Belomo & Associates at 717-845-5390, or check us out on the web at www.belomoassociates.com. And remember, don't take what you heard on this podcast or any other radio show as attorney-client relationship. It's for educational and informational purposes only, and it's intended to provide some insights so that you can think about a situation. But if you're looking for particular advice, please call an attorney licensed in your state so that you can get advice in the particular area that you're looking for in the state that you need. If you're in Pennsylvania and you need an estate planning and elder law attorney, we would be honored to assist you. And we'll provide education for free in the pre-planning, the crisis planning, special needs planning, and administration areas. I'm Jeff Belomo, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show. Until next time, we'll see you real soon.